I think everybody agrees the mortgage and foreclosure crisis is something that should be dealt with. It's a very serious issue. It impacts all of us throughout the state. And so to have policy or even fiscal hearings on this is right and appropriate. This abbreviation of the process is not, and the previous speaker was very articulate in many of the reasons. Let me quote, just for reference, Joint Rule 29.5, which states, a conference committee on any bill other than the budget bill may not approve any substantial financial provision in any bill if the financial provision has not been heard by the fiscal committee of each house, nor may any conference committee approve substantial policy changes that have not been heard by the policy committee of each house. Now, we're going to get into a very nuanced version of what heard means. I submit to you it is not shouting out in a committee room that has not been convened about an issue and then saying it has been heard. And yet we're going to be coming real close to something similar to that. The policy committees, the fiscal committees are set up to hear things. Each house then, the appropriate process, as I understand it, when we disagree, we form a conference committee then to find a meeting of the minds. Why this process is particularly egregious is when it comes back to us, well, in conference committee, you'll have the opportunity to say things. You'll have opportunities to nod your head, to shake your heads, but at the end of the day, what you vote on is a product. When it comes back here, you get an up-down vote. You don't have the normal transparency. And I submit to you that what it does to this institution is it perpetuates the concept that somehow major policy issues here are conducted and agreed upon in some back smoke-filled room. Is that what we want to be known for? And I want to tread very carefully here, and I understand one is very sensitive and the other is not, and that's appropriate. But earlier we held some ceremonies and had some dialogue about how minorities were systematically discriminated against, which led to awful, awful consequences. You know, we have a minority party here, which I happen to be the leader of in the Senate. And at least in the past, historically, the rules were changed and then followed. It's still egregious, but here you have an even trampling upon the rules that are before us. The principle is the same, folks, and this is how the slippery slope begins. You tread on the rules here, and pretty soon the more serious issues seem commonplace because that's just how we do things. Well, if you're going to violate the rule, then at least have the courtesy of changing the rule. But don't go along and just say that in this tortured process that somehow we're following the rules. I've always learned and heard that the Senate is different from the other house, and I respect that character and that difference. If we move this forward and we move through this process without hearing these in fiscal or policy committees, we are violating that. We are guilty of not following the rules of the House, and I urge a no vote on this.